What if the largest creatures on Earth are not the ones we see on land, but the ones hiding in total darkness, miles beneath the ocean? Far below the glittering surface, where sunlight fades into black and the water presses with a force that could crush a submarine hull, an entirely different set of biological rules begins to operate. Down here, life does not rush. It slows, stretches, and sometimes grows to astonishing size. Small crustaceans become the length of your forearm. Jellyfish drift like enormous living parachutes. Squid evolve eyes larger than dinner plates to watch the darkness itself. Scientists call this pattern deep-sea gigantism, a strange and persistent phenomenon observed in many animals living below roughly 1 kilometer beneath the surface. Yet despite decades of research, no single explanation fully accounts for it. Why would a world defined by starvation, freezing cold, and crushing pressure produce giants instead of miniatures? Somewhere in the physics of the abyss, there is an answer, but to understand it, we first need to descend into the deep ocean itself. At around 1,000 meters below the surface, sunlight disappears completely. The blue glow that fills the upper ocean fades into darkness, and the familiar rhythms of the surface world vanish. This region, known as the bathypelagic zone, marks the threshold between the ocean we know and a realm that behaves more like an alien ecosystem. Temperatures hover just above freezing, usually between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius. The water is cold, stable, and almost unchanged by seasons. Pressure increases relentlessly with depth, rising by roughly 1 atmosphere every 10 meters. By the time you reach 4 kilometers down, the ocean presses with more than 400 times the pressure we experience at sea level. It is a force capable of crushing steel and collapsing air-filled spaces instantly. And yet life does not retreat from this environment. It adapts. Stranger still, some of the animals that inhabit this darkness grow far larger than their relatives in shallow waters. The giant isopod, a distant cousin of the tiny pillbugs that hide beneath garden stones, can reach nearly half a meter in length and weigh more than a kilogram. Japanese spider crabs extend their legs outward in slow, deliberate motion, spanning almost 4 meters from claw to claw. Even amphipods, shrimp-like scavengers that measure only millimeters near the surface, can grow larger than a human hand in the trenches of the Pacific. These creatures did not simply grow larger by chance. Again and again, across unrelated species, the deep ocean seems to push evolution in the same direction, toward size. Something in the physics and ecology of the abyss consistently favors larger bodies, and scientists are still trying to understand exactly why. One of the most powerful forces shaping life in the deep ocean may be temperature. In the abyss, the water rarely rises above a few degrees above freezing, and this constant cold changes the fundamental chemistry of living cells. Cold slows metabolism. The chemical reactions that power muscles, repair tissue, and move energy through the body all proceed at a reduced pace. In most environments, this would be a disadvantage. A slow metabolism means slower movement, slower growth, and slower responses to danger. But in the deep sea, where food is scarce and unpredictable, slowing down can become a powerful survival strategy. Energy arrives from above in the form of what scientists call marine snow. Tiny particles drift downward through the water column like a quiet blizzard. Fragments of dead plankton, bits of organic tissue, mucus aggregates, fecal pellets released by animals feeding near the surface. This slow rain of nutrients can take weeks to reach the seafloor. By the time it arrives in the abyss, most of the original energy has already been consumed by organisms living in the layers above. What finally settles on the deep ocean floor is only a thin trickle of nourishment. In such an environment, every calorie matters. Animals that burn energy slowly gain a crucial advantage. Larger bodies often use energy more efficiently relative to their mass. They can store reserves in fat and tissue and endure long stretches without feeding. A giant isopod, for example, can survive for months, and in some cases, more than a year without food. In the deep ocean, patience becomes a biological strategy. Growing larger is not simply about strength or dominance. It is about endurance. The ability to wait in darkness until the next meal finally arrives. The deep ocean is usually a place of scarcity. Most days, very little food reaches the seafloor. The slow fall of marine snow provides only a thin and constant drizzle of nutrients. But every so often, the abyss experiences something closer to a feast. When a large animal dies near the surface, its body begins a long descent into darkness. A whale, a giant fish, sometimes even a massive squid. Over the course of hours or days, gravity pulls the carcass down through the water column until it finally reaches the ocean floor. These rare events are known as whale falls, and they transform the deep sea almost instantly. What was once an empty stretch of sediment becomes a sudden center of life. The scent of decaying flesh spreads through the water, and scavengers begin to arrive. Giant isopods crawl across the seafloor. Sleeper sharks circle slowly through the darkness. Swarms of amphipods descend like a living cloud, stripping soft tissue from the carcass in a matter of weeks. But the feast does not end when the flesh disappears. After the larger scavengers leave, bacteria begin breaking down the bones themselves. This process releases hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals that nourish specialized organisms such as bone-eating worms, clams, and microbial communities. Entire ecosystems can develop around a single skeleton. Some whale fall communities persist for decades. In the deep ocean, where food usually arrives in tiny fragments, these massive carcasses represent an extraordinary pulse of energy. For animals living in this environment, size can become a crucial advantage. Larger bodies allow organisms to travel farther in search of these rare windfalls. They also allow animals to store energy for long periods between meals. In a world defined by unpredictability, growing large becomes a form of biological insurance. A strategy built not on constant feeding, but on surviving the long silence between feasts. Another factor that may quietly shape the size of deep-sea life is oxygen. It is easy to overlook because oxygen in the ocean is invisible. Yet its presence controls how large an animal can grow. Cold water holds far more dissolved oxygen than warm water. This is a simple law of chemistry. As temperature drops, gases remain dissolved more easily. In the deep ocean, where temperatures hover just above freezing, oxygen becomes unusually abundant compared with many shallow tropical waters. But the deep sea is not isolated. It is constantly refreshed by one of the largest circulation systems on Earth. Near the polar regions, surface waters cool, grow dense, and sink toward the bottom of the ocean. As they descend, they carry oxygen absorbed from the atmosphere. These slow-moving currents spread across the seafloor and ventilate the deep for thousands of miles. The result is an environment where oxygen is available even in the darkest depths. This matters because every cell in an animal's body depends on oxygen to release energy from food. As animals grow larger, the challenge of delivering oxygen throughout their tissues becomes more difficult. Circulatory systems must move oxygen efficiently across greater distances. In warm, shallow seas, this often creates a limit. Beyond a certain size, oxygen transport becomes inefficient, and bodies cannot expand further without risking internal suffocation. But in the abyss, those limits soften. Higher oxygen availability means tissues can remain active even as bodies grow larger and thicker. Some scientists believe this abundance may quietly support the evolution of larger forms. Crustaceans, worms, and gelatinous animals can expand their bodies without encountering the same physiological bottlenecks faced by their relatives in warmer waters. In the deep ocean, the chemistry of cold water may open the door to giants. Pressure may also play an important role in shaping the bodies of deep-sea animals, though scientists are still unraveling exactly how this influence works. In the deep ocean, pressure increases relentlessly with depth. Every 10 meters adds another atmosphere of force. At 4,000 meters below the surface, the water presses down with more than 400 times the pressure we experience at sea level. It is an environment where airspaces collapse instantly and rigid structures would fail. Yet for the animals that live there, pressure is not an occasional challenge. It is the permanent condition of existence. At the microscopic level, this immense weight affects the very chemistry of life. High pressure compresses proteins and alters the structure of cell membranes. Enzymes that normally drive metabolism can change shape, slowing, or even failing to function properly. The machinery inside living cells must operate under forces that would destabilize most biological systems. Some researchers believe body size may influence how organisms cope with these conditions. Larger bodies contain greater internal volume relative to their surface area. This geometry may buffer certain internal processes from the full effects of external pressure, allowing biochemical reactions to remain more stable. Deep-sea species have also evolved remarkable molecular defenses. One of the most important is a compound known as trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. This molecule stabilizes proteins, helping them maintain their correct shape even when compressed by enormous pressure. As depth increases, many animals accumulate higher concentrations of TMAO in their tissues. It acts like a chemical shield, protecting the delicate structures that keep cells alive. These biochemical adaptations allow deep-sea organisms not only to endure the crushing weight of the ocean, but to build bodies that function reliably in an environment where pressure never relents. In the abyss, life has learned how to operate under forces that would destroy most other ecosystems on Earth. Predation also changes in a profound way as we descend into the deep ocean. In shallow coastal waters, life unfolds in constant motion. Predators patrol reefs, hunt across sandy bottoms, and chase prey through open water. Survival often depends on speed, camouflage, or the ability to disappear into crevices before a hunter arrives. But the deeper you go, the quieter the ocean becomes. In the abyss, animals are far more widely spaced. Encounters between predator and prey can be rare events, separated by long stretches of emptiness. Hunting becomes expensive in a world where energy is scarce and darkness hides everything beyond a few meters. Chasing prey across vast distances simply costs too much. As a result, many deep-sea predators rely on patience rather than pursuit. The anglerfish drifts motionless in the water, a small bioluminescent lure glowing just in front of its jaws. Curious animals approach the light, unaware they are moving toward a mouth lined with needle-like teeth. Dragonfish patrol the darkness using a faint beam of red bioluminescent light that most deep-sea animals cannot see. It allows them to scan the water silently, detecting prey without revealing their presence. The gulper eel takes a different approach entirely. Its enormous mouth can expand to swallow animals nearly its own size, turning rare encounters into massive meals. In such an environment, growing large can offer an unexpected advantage. A thick exoskeleton, a broad gelatinous bell, or simply a massive body can make an animal difficult or unprofitable to attack. When predators are few and food is precious, hunters often ignore prey that would require too much effort to subdue. Under these conditions, the evolutionary pressure to remain small and fast begins to weaken. In the quiet darkness of the deep sea, size itself can become a form of protection. Time itself seems to move differently in the deep ocean. In the sunlit world above, life is often fast and competitive. Animals grow quickly, reproduce early, and live short lives shaped by constant change. But in the darkness of the abyss, biological clocks appear to slow. Many deep-sea species grow at an almost patient pace. Years may pass before an animal reaches maturity, and once it does, it may continue living far longer than most creatures near the surface. One of the most striking examples is the Greenland shark. This slow-moving predator inhabits the cold depths of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. Recent studies using radiocarbon dating of eye tissue suggest that some individuals may live for more than 400 years. That makes the Greenland shark the longest-lived vertebrate known on Earth. Other organisms stretch time even further. Certain deep-sea corals have been dated to over 4,000 years old, forming slow-growing structures that began their lives long before the rise of many human civilizations. Such extraordinary longevity shapes how these animals reproduce. Instead of producing large numbers of offspring quickly, many deep-sea species follow a different strategy. They mature late, reproduce slowly, and invest far more energy into each young. Eggs tend to be larger. Larvae are often more developed when they hatch. The goal is not quantity, but survival. In an environment where conditions remain stable for millions of years, this patient strategy works remarkably well. Life in the deep sea is not driven by speed. It is shaped by endurance, longevity, and the quiet passage of centuries. The deep ocean is ancient in a way that few other ecosystems on Earth can match. While life near the surface constantly adjusts to shifting conditions, the abyss has remained remarkably stable for immense spans of time. At the surface, the ocean is restless. Storms churn the water. Currents shift with the seasons. Temperatures rise and fall with changing climates. Entire coastlines reshape over geological time. But thousands of meters below, the environment becomes strikingly constant. Temperatures remain close to freezing year after year. Darkness never lifts. Pressure never changes. Even the chemistry of the surrounding water evolves only slowly, as deep ocean circulation moves across the seafloor over centuries. For organisms living there, this stability creates a very different evolutionary landscape. In environments that change rapidly, species must adapt quickly or disappear. But in the deep sea, where conditions remain consistent for millions of years, evolution can move slowly and precisely. Adaptations are refined across immense stretches of time rather than through sudden bursts of change. Many deep-sea animals still resemble forms that existed during the age of dinosaurs. The lineage of giant isopods, for example, stretches back more than 160 million years. Their armored bodies and segmented shapes have endured through mass extinctions and planetary upheaval. These creatures are not experiments racing toward new designs. They are survivors perfectly tuned to a world that rarely demands reinvention. In such an ancient and stable environment, certain strategies prove remarkably effective. Growing large may be one of them. Over millions of years, size has become not just a possibility in the abyss, but one of the most reliable paths to survival. And yet, despite everything science has discovered, the deep ocean remains one of the least explored environments on our planet. Human beings have mapped mountains, deserts, forests, and even the surface of Mars with remarkable precision. But the vast majority of the seafloor still lies beyond our direct observation. Scientists estimate that less than 5% of the ocean floor has been visually explored by submersibles, remotely operated vehicles, or deep-sea cameras. The rest remains hidden beneath kilometers of water. Across the abyssal plains, the deepest trenches, and the immense chains of underwater mountains known as mid-ocean ridges, entire ecosystems continue to exist without ever being seen by human eyes. These regions cover more than half of the Earth's surface. Every time researchers send a submersible into these depths, new discoveries follow. Unknown species appear on camera. Strange body forms emerge from the darkness. Creatures adapted to pressures and conditions once thought impossible reveal themselves, drifting quietly through the water. Some are delicate and nearly transparent. Others are far larger than scientists expected. It is entirely possible that the giants we know today are only part of the story. Somewhere in those unseen regions, animals may exist that push the limits of size even further, evolving in ways we have not yet imagined. The deep ocean is not only the largest habitat on Earth, it is also the most mysterious. And every massive creature moving through that darkness reminds us of something profound. Life does not simply endure extreme environments, it transforms within them. If you enjoy exploring the hidden worlds beneath the ocean, consider joining us here on Sunken Realms Deep. Because the deeper we go, the more the ocean reveals a simple truth. Some of the greatest wonders on Earth may still be waiting in the dark.